Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, last night in Milwaukee, sad night in Milwaukee for the Cubs, for Cubs fans. News broke during the game that Ryne Sandberg had passed away at the age of 65. A year plus long battle with cancer that returned after what we thought was good news around this time last year, a little over a year ago. I think
Mhm.
he thought he had heard some good news, came back aggressively, sadly, and we learned of his passing last night. It was it was an odd scene, I guess, a rare scene in the clubhouse. They'd lost a tough game. That didn't seem to be on anyone's minds. It was just very quiet, no music, no talk, very little talking. I should say very little chatter. Uh,
Yeah.
and all that was talked about was Ryne Sandberg and his legacy.
And appropriately so. The game never stops, but there are moments when people slow down. And I think, you captured that scene really well in your story on The Athletic of just guys looking at their phones, kind of the hushed tones within the room, kind of a somber atmosphere. Craig Counsell didn't get a single question about the game other than like, when did you find out the news? He said, I'll take questions if you want, but I don't think anyone was really in the headspace to like dig in on any of those game details, just because everyone understood how much Ryne Sandberg meant to the city of Chicago, the Cubs franchise, and also um, it gives us a greater appreciation or a different perspective on his presence there in spring training and his connection to this particular group.
Yeah, that seemed to be brought up a lot. Him coming out during spring training, clearly not feeling his best, but I guess the word would be energized to be around the group, to
Yeah.
be around baseball again. Uh, he they kind of knew that he wasn't feeling great. I don't think that was going to stop him. Even his most recent messages, he was lamenting the fact that he couldn't be out at the ballpark as much as he wanted to this season. He clearly loved being around the Cubs. Feel like that was uh, feel like that's what stood out. John Greenberg wrote about this.
Yes.
His
Yes.
post playing career. Uh, he managed. He tried media. I think his best role was ambassador for this team. He was a kind person. He brought a lot of joy to the group. Uh, I mean, his numbers speak for themselves. We'll talk about what he was as a player, but I thought that stood out to me because I remember, he wasn't a great manager. He wasn't great at the media side, but he was so good at just like connecting people to the game.
Mm-hmm.
There was something about him, and the players enjoyed being around him, and he seemed to really like value those moments.
Yeah, we'll get into more of kind of the legacy stuff and his wider impact in the next couple segments. But I thought going on the room, I mean, you had these some of these quotes in your story, and I thought it really summed it up well. Of Matthew Boyd being like, I show up in spring training, and Ryne Sandberg greeted me as if I was a Cub my entire life. Obviously, he'd only signed a couple months earlier, and then Ian Happ telling a story how he was kind of going through it in one of those Aprils, and Ryno pulled him to the side, off to the side by the batting cage, and said, "My career numbers in April were terrible, and I always turned around. You'll be fine." And I think Hap really summed it up well. Of like for him to not only take the time, but to be paying attention that closely and to care that much, like it was just a really cool moment for uh, a young player, and I think it just speaks to uh, his ability to, like you say, connect people and connect generations. Craig Counsell summed that up very eloquently as well, of like, when you do this job and you're able to make an impact, it brings people together. And I think the Cubs felt that in that moment of, Counsell addressing the team after the game. I think some people found out, during the game, but there was definitely a different, energy in that room, that visiting clubhouse at American Family Field.
Yeah, Nico Horner obviously plays the same position as Ryne
Yeah.
Sandberg, and had some conversations with him in the past few years. I appreciated Nico's comments about how, they talk about the game, they talk about how things were different nowadays than when Rhino played. But there was never I mean, Nico made a point of saying it wasn't like he was critiquing today's
Yeah.
game, or like, oh, back in my day this is how things were done and it was better. uh I appreciate that, because you hear that a lot from older players, right? You can hear
Mhm.
like, well, this is how we did things, why don't they do things like this nowadays? Why don't they should go the other way with the ball, it's so easy. That's how you beat the shift, things like that. It's Ryno didn't act like he was better than today's game. He just was fascinated by the differences, and appreciated what was going on as the game evolved. I think that says something about him as a person, just appreciating the way the game is played, no matter what era. Uh, Hard work, work ethic. These are the types of things you like talk to your kids about, not, like,
Mhm.
while everyone loves the flashy players, I love the flashy players. They're really fun to watch, and kids love them as well. Like, Ryno just went about it exactly the way that you teach your kids to play the game. Really, really appreciated him being around these last few years, and getting to know him a little bit better. Let's take a break and talk about his impact as a player, and his resume as a player.
Nothing says summer like long days, clutch plays, and firing off a few bets on the game, all with DraftKings Sportsbook. Never bet on baseball before? It's easy. Pick a guy to go yard, hammer some live odds mid-game, or just ride your squad and hope for the best. No spreadsheets, just vibes and dingers. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Boyd, Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Patrick, 10 straight All-Star appearances, I believe 9 Gold Gloves for Ryne Sandberg. Just, a ton of Silver Sluggers. That MVP season in 1984 that kind of put him on the map, put the Cubs really on the map. I didn't realize this until John Greenberg told us last night. It was in his story as well. They broke the 2 million attendance mark in 1984. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the team was playing well that year, but Sandberg was a big reason. They've broken 2 million every year outside of COVID seasons and strike shortened seasons since then. Uh, that kind of blows me away to think that Ryno was like the one that pushed that in an era of like Walter Payton, Michael
Yeah.
Jordan was just starting. Ryno wasn't, I mean, those guys were winning championships. They were like, the Bears are this city
Yeah.
when it comes to sports. Ryno wasn't overshadowed. He was still, this huge figure in this city that loves sports.
The other day at Wrigley, Bob Dernier, after doing the 7th inning stretch, he was wearing a Ryno Ryno hat, Ryno throwback jersey, told Jesse Rogers and I, like, in 84, the picture changed, and that was for Ryno individually as becoming this MVP superstar, but also like for the Wrigleyville neighborhood as a whole. I'm gonna say, did they even call it Wrigleyville back then? I don't know, but just like you had Harry Carey narrating it, you had the WGN Superstation blasting it out across the country. Jed Hoyer in the marquee booth during that Red Sox series summed it up very nicely as well. Of you look out from the broadcast booth and you see just the machine that Wrigley Field is, and you see the skyline and just how picturesque everything is, and a lot of people built this franchise and make it go, but in terms of a singular figure who really like catapulted the Cubs to a different level, he certainly deserves a lion's share of credit there. I think Jed, framed it as this fervor, this national passion was a direct reflection of Ryne Sandberg's not only production but also the way he went about it. And as you alluded to, Sahadev, in that earlier segment, doing things the right way. That Hall of Fame speech, is one of those that, I think it was 20 years ago, and it's still referenced. And I bet 20 years from now, it'll still be referenced, and not just in a baseball context. It's just, real life lessons that, resonate far beyond the baseball world.
Yeah, absolutely. What the impact of him as a person, that you're right. That speech is something that I don't realize how much it resonated, because it feels like, at least to me, it was like, oh, we talk about it because he's a local guy. That's why we talk about it. I don't think I fully appreciated that. Oh, no, this is like all of baseball will always be talking about that speech. It's one of the most unforgettable speeches that has been given at Cooperstown. Just some of his numbers kind of blow me away. I don't think I fully realized that he was. I mean, I watched the Cubs back then. I was a fan, and I don't think he stole 54 bases in 85. I don't remember 85. I was 4 years old, but I'm just saying, I didn't realize he had that in his game until I looked back and I was like, oh yeah, he was a speedster back in his day. They stole a lot of bases in the 80s, but still, that's crazy. 19 triples in 1984, 13 of them at Wrigley. Council brought this up last night when we were talking to him, but I've heard him talk about this before. He's regularly amazed that someone hit 13 triples at Wrigley Field, and he's right. There's no weird bounces at Wrigley. How do you do that? How do you hit 13 triples? And then to kind of transform himself as a player in the late 80s, early 90s, and start being a power hitter. That was, I think we had Barry Rosner on about a year ago, right?
Yeah, he was great for the statue ceremony.
Yeah. And he said that if I'm remembering correctly, this may have either been a conversation I had with Barry or it was on the podcast, but he said that was a very specific thing that a coach of his helped him kind of figure out how to tap into his power. He made specific changes. It's just kind of crazy to me that a player who was already on a Hall of Fame trajectory would be willing to make those types of changes, and then it works and it takes him to this other level of playing that those power numbers in 1990, just not this is pre-steroids era, or is right, whatever you want to call it, and a second baseman hitting 40 home runs, the type of power that you just don't see from a middle infielder in that era of baseball, freakish stuff. It was, and I remember thinking, I remember thinking at that time, I'm a 9-year-old kid, this is the greatest second baseman ever. Joe Morgan, is what I was thinking. Joe Morgan, Roberto Alomar, those are the names you probably think of as far as very the past 50-ish years of baseball, but Ryne Sandberg's right up there with them.
Yeah, and I think too, I got a text message from I'm text chain with a couple of friends, and this guy's from the East Coast, but it was just this news hit him hard. He's like, I had a Ryne Sandberg glove from middle school on, a guy who grew up, 1,000 miles away from Wrigley Field. And I think it was just just the little things like that. I think kind of pop up here of just, Ryne Sandberg really, it's just the one word too. Like he's like those world famous musicians, like Ryno, and I think it takes you back to another time and place. I think John Greenberg had a great line in his story too, of just kind of making kids feel special and making adults feel like kids, something along those lines. And I think that was definitely it. And we can get into it in this next segment here of just how he was as a person and how he carried the weight of superstardom, very gracefully.
Yep. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's take a quick break and talk about some of our memories of Ryno as a person.
FT fam, we have a special offer for you. If you go to surfshark.com/foul or use the code FOUL at checkout, get yourself 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. It's a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. And you can see more information in our show notes. It's surfshark.com/foul. And why should they check out Surfshark VPN, Kratz?
Well, this is a no-brainer because I travel a lot and I'm online. I need to have that security. And as a former catcher, I need someone else to catch my digital threats online. Surfshark's the place.
It's time to take control of your online security. Try Surfshark today and enjoy their 30-day money-back guarantee. Secure your digital world now. Visit the link below. It's in the notes. Start surfing securely. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Check out surfshark.com/foul.
Patrick, I want to quickly share something that I remember as a kid before I actually knew Sandberg as a person. So I like, people may have heard this before, but I grew up a Mets fan, and that only happened because I had a ton of Keith Hernandez cards. Nice. I used to collect cards a ton. Keith Hernandez was the guy whose cards I had the most. Then 1990 happened. And Sandberg seemingly hit a home run every day. I lived in the north suburbs. I couldn't avoid it. I'd come home, watch WGN. That, obviously back then we didn't have MLB TV. We weren't watching every team. My dad and I collected cards back then. That's really like when I started collecting baseball cards, really when I really got into baseball. And we were really into it. And I remember my dad negotiating with someone buying, like, he wanted to buy a bunch of Ryne Sandberg rookie cards. And the guy was like, "Come on, he has 20 something home runs." And I said, actually, I'm guessing he said like 21 home runs. I'm like, actually he has 23. He hit 2 last night. And my dad flashed this look at me like, "What are you doing? I am trying to negotiate with this guy to get a cheaper deal on these cards." But I couldn't
keep quiet. Yeah. You know it all. Yeah.
yeah. I couldn't short Ryno his homers. Like, he was on like this epic pace that like I said, like for a kid like me, it felt like every day he was hitting a home run. Just really gave me some great memories to be able to meet him, to be on a panel with him in a pregame show during the World Series in 2016, to have conversations with him on the field over the years. I think we're good at compartmentalizing the fan side. We like, that goes away. It went away pretty quickly when I started this job. Yeah. But when I look back on that, think about that kid and think about the opportunities I've had, it's pretty surreal to think about. Like, wow, this guy that made me fall in love with baseball, like, became this guy that I just chatted with on a semi-regular basis at the ballpark. Kind of wild to think about.
Yeah, this is a kind of a third-hand story. I haven't triple checked it, but the essence of it, I think, summed up Ryne Sandberg. I'm not trying to like name drop myself here, but I had a family friend who crossed paths with Ryne Sandberg, I want to say in the Cooperstown area at some sort of event, and he had said, "Oh, do you know Patrick Mooney?" And Ryne Sandberg, who honestly did not know me that well, said, "Everyone in Chicago knows Patrick Mooney." And it was just like this great, like, way, the way it was told to me, just the way of him, like, kind of the way he would make other people feel, just at ease, and how he was, very approachable. I think that's what kind of surprised me just hearing last night how just physically what he was going through in spring training. Because Jesse Rogers and I, one morning, it was a boring morning, just standing in the clubhouse, and Ryno just walks up to us and just starts talking. He starts talking about Matt Shaw, and I told Matt this. This is when I started with the stuff from his career that he pulled out. It was always his struggles. You know what I mean? Like, that's how he would relate to people, and that's why I came away from that conversation. I was like, man, like he must be doing well. Like he looked good. And obviously, it's a difficult situation, but just getting to know him, at a distance, but not as someone who, grew up in Chicago at that time or who like covered him as a player. I was just always impressed at these little stories you hear about how he was just kind of a grandpa on the North Shore. Like that was his job and his passion in a way of just kind of looking after them and being Ryne Sandberg and just, all these, indications of how gracious he was and that he understood like any small sort of gesture could go a long way and make someone's day. And I think that's, a really good lesson, the kind of the takeaway from Ryne Sandberg of just how he carried himself. And, it's not, just our memories here. I mean, you can just type his name into social media, on Twitter. It's a terrible place in general, but just everything's flooding in.
Yeah.
I think Barack Obama had a great tweet, as like, as a White Sox fan, everyone in Chicago loved Ryno. And I think, this clearly had been weighing on the family. There were these kind of hints of, John Lester and Kerry Wood wearing the Ryno jerseys and his messages on social media. So I do think in a way it will be nice to hear some of that from, people who really, got to know him on a much deeper level.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think John Greenberg said it really well. He made adults feel like kids. Like you, I've been getting texts from friends who grew up loving Sandberg and just relating some memories. I think someone put it best. Their dad was texting them and just said, just remember, how he made you fall in love with the game. All the, I think both him and his brother played baseball growing up. And they tap their 23 on the side of their hat, of their Cubs hat, when they were playing the game to kind of, remind themselves of their best or of their favorite player. So I hope Cubs fans are remembering their favorite memories of Sandberg right now, and the joy that he brought fans. And like I said, he's the reason. He's a big reason why I fell in love with the game. That's true for so many people in this area or Cubs fans in general. So our thoughts go out to Cubs fans, Sandberg family, the Cubs family, everyone around. He impacted a lot of people. It's a sad time for the Cubs world. Thanks everyone for listening. This is Northside Territory. We'll be back with another episode soon. Take care, everyone.